Hello, everybody. My name is Cameron Dennis. I am the host, or one of the hosts, here with Felix, Meng from Xtrace, where we unpack the last week of AI news. So we were offline last week because both of our teams were very busy shipping and did not have as much time to review everything. But we are back this week, and there's a lot of exciting news that happened over the last couple of weeks in AI. Everything from Claude 3.7 Sonnet, ChatGPT 4.5. Perplexity announcing that they're launching a browser. So much stuff to dive into, and here with Felix. So, Felix, you want to give a very, very quick overview about some of the research that you found exciting?
Yeah, I think
Not diving too deep into the details.
Yeah, just a quick overview, like a heads up what we're going to cover. One is on like the large language model side or like the diffusion model side, and then other one is on agentic framework. I think that's a quick overview, and then we can talk about it later.
Great. So just FYI, everybody, like I sort of normally cover some of the more traditional AI lab news, and Felix normally dives into the research. But before we get into it, Felix, do you mind just telling everyone a bit about yourself if they're tuning in for the first time, and a little bit about Xtrace?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Xtrace, and then a previous graduate from Stanford CS and math, and currently working on Xtrace, a way to create encrypted memory and knowledge base for AI agents. So essentially, people can personalize their AI agent without sacrificing their privacy.
Absolute prerequisite to mass adoption. So shout out to what you're doing. So just to kick it off, again, last week was insane for the state of AI with the launch of Claude 3.7 Sonnet. For those who are familiar with Claude and everything happening in Anthropic, Claude is pretty damn comparable to all of the other large AI labs tools. But the launch of 3.7 Sonnet was really focused on code gen and tool use. It really does a lot better than pretty much everyone else, except for certain reasoning. So in terms of graduate level reasoning, by the way, all this comes from the software engineering benchmark SweBench. By the way, anytime that you're evaluating any type of model performance, it's critical to look at some of these top benchmark rating agencies or companies. And so Claude 3.7 Sonnet does perform really well on code gen and tool use, but not as great as DeepSeek, Grok, and OpenAI O3 Mini on math reasoning and just graduate level reasoning generally. So it seems like Anthropic's sort of taking this like code focused approach, which I think is great. Like whoever solves this essentially solves AGI. And they launched other really compelling stuff again in the world of code gen. They launched Claude Code that runs in your terminal and can access files within any folder, make suggestions, helps you write new code. It's essentially a more local approach to like code gen, which I think is really, really neat. And right now you can see online a bunch of people making different websites, apps, games, so much stuff just with one single prompt, which is really, really cool. Felix, did you get a chance to try Claude 3.7 Sonnet? Like, what are the sort of models that you and your team use for CodeGen?
I haven't really
tried. This seems to be a big advancement.
Yeah, I haven't really tried using it yet, but last week was kind of busy right now outside. But I did see a lot of interesting like demo about them coding a game with just a single prompt, and I think it's also a good way for Anthropic to kind of monetize because most of their API calls are from enterprise, and focusing on CodeGen makes a lot of sense to them.
Yeah, I mean, like to me, this is like the thing. If we are able to solve like get to AGI, it's going to pretty much be through CodeGen models and their ability to reason. So exciting stuff. Any other news on like Anthropic side, Felix, that you want to cover? Because there's so much more we can dive into.
Yeah, let's dive into the other ones.
Okay, so OpenAI also released ChatGPT 4.5. This is a pretty big step, but I would say it's not as like I don't know. I'm still more impressed with what's happening in the Anthropic world personally. I think what ChatGPT or what OpenAI is doing really does set the benchmark for everyone else. But I didn't really see as great results from ChatGPT 4.5. I mean, from ChatGPT 4.0, it seems a lot better. But when it comes to OpenAI's like O3 mini model, it's pretty much the same on reasoning for like and like use for science, math, coding, and everything else. Like I do think that it's a big step, but it wasn't as big as I think everyone was hoping for with the release of 4.5. I would say like the most relevant thing is, and it's actually added, like Sam has talked about this a lot, that 4.5 just has better vibes, and this like idea of like vibe coding is getting bigger and bigger, which is really just I think better way to say like it's a lot more concise, a lot more human-like. So I think that is where ChatGPT 4.5 does sort of shine the most, but it's not really as good as other models on CodeGen and others. And so exciting stuff, but wasn't as compelling to me as some other stuff. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're kind of just like hitting the wall right now because it's kind of hard to just be better in terms of finding like new kinds of approach. I think the previous one, when they're introducing thinking, I think it's essentially what like maybe R1 is doing, but they just didn't print it out. But after R1 printed it out, it's kind of not a secret anymore. And then they're just trying to find new ways to be like this new frontier approach or something. Yeah.
I mean, this word of vibes, I mean, this is really, I think the meta question is like, sometimes it's hard to put success metrics on what feels better for people. And so, yeah, once there's a benchmark on vibes, I'll be very impressed and happy.
Yes.
There does seem to be, I mean, one, I guess, metric of success of having good vibes would be like hallucination rates. Like if it's not a good vibe, if the question that you're asking is actually not getting answered properly, or it's giving you bad answers. And so that is one actually real big benefit from ChatGPT 4.5 compared to other OpenAI models. It seems to be that the simple like QA hallucination rate is decreasing pretty quickly. But yeah, you know, shout out. I will give people money if they come up with a better vibe benchmark, because it seems to be one of the leading drivers of interest in models.
Yeah, a lot of papers were just using another large language model to calculate this kind of vibe or other benchmarks by just throwing out the output to other judge LM models. Not sure if it really works, but I think it's also an acceptable benchmarking research.
Yeah. So yeah, but more to come. And you know, OpenAI and Anthropic were not the only two labs that were launching stuff this week. It's so crazy how much is going on. It just doesn't stop. So Perplexity did launch their new browser called Comet, which is really going to be powering agentic search. My interpretation of this is it's really trying to sort of evolve the user experience of AI. At the end of the day, I don't think everyone will be just like chatting with a text box. I think this experience is what we have right now, but I do see AI in the future just being one interface that you're going to interact with voice. And I think Perplexity's sort of focus on a new browser is a step in this direction. But I think people are really experimenting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Felix, what are your thoughts on like the UI of AI?
Yeah, the Perplexity has announced a lot of like new product feature. I think they also talk about like Perplexity Commerce, and they also or adding ads into large language models, and also like full stack like decentralized not decentralized, like Apple Intelligence into the system. So I think they're currently experimenting with a lot of different narratives and trying to differentiate themselves from like GPT Search or Gemini, because that's kind of like their main tech mode, but doesn't really exist anymore after like OpenAI and Google joins the game. So I think they're like really trying to find different ways to differentiate themselves outside of this market. Yeah.
And it's hard. Like I do not envy, I think, like the idea that like Grok 3 can launch one day, and then 3 days later Anthropic 3.7 Sonnet launches. It's the attention span of the space is even smaller than other fast moving industries like crypto. And it's just impossible to kind of keep track, which is why we host this show. So definitely give it a look. Yeah.
It's also funny how everyone is using deep research right now. Like I think one company started, and now it's just the feature for everyone as a prereq. Yeah.
Actually, I think we missed talking about deep research last time. Do you want to sort of unpack that a little bit? Like, what is deep research, and like, why is it actually like, why is chain of thought sort of an approach that all these AI labs are going down for their inference? Like,
yeah, I think we
why is it
kind of
important?
covered in the second episode about like we creating like a recurrent neural network inside the large language model for it to like think in the latent space. And essentially, chain of thought is like the easier version of it. So basically, just let the model think out loud, so have all the iterative process. And having this deep research ability is really strong. So you can think about like how human mind works when they're doing research or doing like math questions. You don't jump from question one directly to answer. Instead, you have to break the question down into a lot of sub questions and then try to solve it iteratively, finding the necessary resource for it, and then generate the response. But my problem with deep research is kind of like the UX. When I was trying it, I think it just takes too long sometimes for some pretty simple questions. So I think you really have to think about like whether to use this functionality or not, because sometimes just a simple question also kind of works. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you really need to read an entire research report to answer a basic question?
Yes.
Probably not. And one thing that I've been sort of considering a lot, I mean, I know this is maybe not the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people, but is our economic footprint, our environmental footprint when we're using AI. Like, if you just like ask like any of these models, like, hey, how much energy did this prompt cost to create or like answer? And I think it says like, at least sometimes when I've asked it, like this cost 35 iPhone batteries, like from full, 0 to 100. And I do think it's really important to sort of abstract this user experience away from users, trying to connect them to the right model depending the type of question they're asking. Because when you go in any of these like chat, boxes, there's like 8 different models or like 9 different models to choose from. And it's just so confusing. Like most people are not going to navigate this, which is why I sort of applaud Perplexity's attempt to, diversify and experiment with new UIs and just user experiences, because this is, I think, a problem that needs to be solved if we're looking for, mass adoption, which I think we're far away from. Like you and I use this all the time, like any of these AIs, but like mass market really is not, using AI every day, and they're still confused.
And it also takes a lot of like us keep on being on track of like all the models to actually know what each model means, or else it's just like random words like what is grok, what is like cloud, what is like all these different models and different like 7B and fine tuned or not and all of that. Yeah, I think it's kind of like all the bridges in like crypto as well. Like just have so many different chains and it's like so many different models. No one can really navigate it if they're not in the space.
Yeah, it's got a ways to go. But on that note, companies with large distribution channels like Twitter, X, like Apple, like Amazon and Microsoft and Google, they're making some significant moves. I would say I was pretty impressed with Grok 3's voice mode. And it's also interesting to see how these labs are sort of like coming out with new feature, and then as like the months go by, like every other lab comes out with some of these new features. So Grok 3 did announce their voice mode, and it is available for people who are paid X users. And again, I thought that was pretty cool because I do think that voice is the real interface between like mass market and AI. Have you tried different voice models? Like, do you chat with these AIs often, or are you primarily,
Yeah, I'm primarily using it, but I see a lot of interesting Twitter tweets regarding like Grok 3's an uncensored model. So they can ask all sort of crazy stuff and then kind of like, and then new content of that is out. So I think Grok, from what I read, kind of a product market fit for like the uncensored market, because that's kind of like the only one available out there that's easy to use and uncensored. Yeah.
Oh man, yes. I was playing with the uncensored Grok model with a buddy of mine, and it is crazy. Like we were asking it, what are the like who is most responsible for misinformation on the internet, and it responded Elon Musk. And then it was, we started asking it like, hey, like what can we do to combat it? Like what can we do to sort of like mitigate misinformation, especially? And then it gave us super deep analysis of like how to disrupt X's plans of rolling out certain features, and like I think it even suggested like figuring out where Elon's plane travels and like how to reroute them to another location. Like it was pretty concerning a little bit, like how good it was at really suggesting like malicious behavior. And it gives you like step-by-step guides. and it was talking about doing this for Elon, which was even more just interesting. So
interesting your viewpoint on like censorship in this kind of AI models. Do you kind of like Grok's approach of non-censoring everything, or kind of like a cloud, right? They have a constitution of AI that basically censors everything, like this two approach.
Yeah, it's a really interesting angle. I do think having some permissionless models will be valuable just for, let's say, people who aren't able to access certain information in their country, whether they live in an authoritarian country. I think they should have less censored models. I do think safety is important for the mass market. I don't think the default will be censorship resistant models. But I think it is important for them to be available for those who might need it, given potential like information controls on their country. It's kind of similar to crypto. It's like, okay, who should get access to Tornado Cash or to mixers, even if it might be criminal? I think everyone should have access to privacy tools. I think everyone should have access to uncensored models. But if we're going to be throwing, like, companies will be throwing models in the faces of like mass market, they will be censored and should be censored. But it's like the option to exit, I think, is important.
Totally agree.
But there should be, as many checks to ensure no data leakage. Like, I think that censorship resistant and security, models that care about user security, I think are different things. And so like we do need to verify security and the content authentication and all this other stuff, while keeping some models uncensored. Open source and the ability for them to run local, I think, is a critical piece. Moving on a little bit to Apple. Apple Apple Intelligence did launch into the Apple Vision Pro. And so I don't know if anyone here still uses Apple Vision Pros or if anyone even bought one to begin with, but now it does have access to Apple Intelligence. And this is primarily for creating things like Genmojis, writing tools. And I guess the interesting thing here is like Apple's approach to adding their intelligence, which is really this, like, I think more sort of homogenous, like general intelligent, I mean, it's not general intelligent, but that's the goal, product into all the other products. And it's interesting to see how they prioritize, like starting with the phone, moving to watch, moving to Vision Pro, and like how these AI models are really just going to be adopted across different mediums and products. So that was interesting. I'm not expecting a lot of adoption personally, but at least on how they think about rolling out AI, Apple Intelligence in their products, I think is the takeaway for me. Do you use that Apple? Like, do you have an iPhone? Like, do you use Apple Intelligence at all?
Not really. I'm more like traditional user. I'm just clicking stuff more. I am not talking to the phone or that much. Still kind of
I turned Siri off.
Yes.
I don't use Siri. Like, it prompted me again today, like turn it back on. I said, no, thank you. I don't know. I mean, my reasoning is like, I just don't want it to listen to me all the time. And like,
for me, just like calling an Uber is pretty straightforward. I think actually calling it to call Uber for me might take longer time than like just clicking.
I mean, this is, I think, a similar sort of line of computer use agents and browser agents. It's like you need that agent to get it right most of the time. I'm talking like not even 50%. I'm talking like 98, 99%, because it is easy to navigate the app. So we do need to sort of increase like quality, and before I think this gets used by mass market. That's the other reason why I don't use Siri, is like I've asked Siri for things and it doesn't give me the answer. So I end up just defaulting back to writing. Speaking of large-scale adoption of certain models, Microsoft is now using deep research in Microsoft Copilot. This Copilot is now available if anyone has like a Windows machine. This is auto added to your Windows machine. They have this like Microsoft Copilot, but then they recently added this in their Copilot Mac app. So if you are a Microsoft person and you have a Mac, you can now download Copilot and experiment with that. I think that's a pretty big deal. And I also love Microsoft's focus on small language models running on local devices. I think that this is one of the best ways for AI to be user-owned over time. And so this is really kind of highlighted in their research and launch of 5.4 mini small language model. And the goal is to actually run certain models on consumer hardware. So I don't think at the end of the day, we are going to, and this is like way further in the future, like need cloud-based LLMs. I think the end goal is really going to be small models that run locally on your device that use the hardware, but we still need a lot of optimization to sort of prevent like very rapid battery draining and making sure that the consumer hardware can actually run these models. So really taking like time to research like quantized models and these SLMs, small language models.
And also really relevant to the topic we talked about in episode 2 as well, about like the distillation process of essentially like distill like specific small language models for specific tasks.
Yeah, I mean, and this is even goes like we're seeing this play out. Like people are every one of these large AI really hyperscalers. And again, when I say that, I'm referring to Apple, Google, Microsoft, X, Meta. They're all coming out with mobile apps, and like mobile apps are really the way to work with mass users. I think Felix, you and I are like a little bit on the more sophisticated user side of things. Like even using this stuff on a computer, I think separates us from the future TAM, total addressable market for AI.
Yes.
And Meta also recently launched their standalone, or they announced their standalone Meta AI app. So again, this is just even more signal that like the phone is the experience. And I'm really curious about how this sort of evolves over time, because Apple, they're the one that really controls the device. Like, will they sort of implement any like it's like the Apple fee for like in-app purchases and all this other stuff for non-Apple AI apps? So things like Meta AI app, Grok now again has voice. Like Microsoft is releasing one too. This to me is like the end state. Is you'll click an app and then from there will essentially be your like your OS.
Yeah, but I think currently only Apple has the like power to do it because they control the OS. So if you're so Apple can easily kill Meta if they just say I block your access to certain data set from the users and all of that. Yeah, so it can be tricky between the battle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably why they were the most valuable company in the world for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, that and their AirPod sales, like their AirPod sales are insane. Like it's like dozens of billions of dollars just on AirPods, which is insane. Cool. So moving on a little bit, I just kind of want to check the box on all of the big AI research labs or like hyperscalers. One of the things that spoke to me most was, and do you mind just muting that notification, Felix?
Yes.
I do hear it. I saw an interesting feature that launched out of Google AI Studio that I think will be sort of mass adopted across all these other AI model companies, and it is the branching feature. So right now, when you are chatting with an LLM and you want to sort of like ask it a question based on a previous prompt, you are now within the Google AI Studio, which by the way is totally free. You can go back to that conversation and like chat within that branch, something that doesn't really exist in any of the other company like models. And I think that this is sort of a really big step forward for the user experience, because right now I use AI all of the time, and I want to refer back to a certain conversation I had, and I have to sort of reprompt it or be really good at making sure my conversations or threads are very coordinated and organized, which most of the time they're not. So I think that this is an amazing feature that will be rolled out everywhere.
And funny how it's so easy to implement and took so long to implement it. And I think another really cool, interesting feature that essentially can be implemented is like deleting certain like message and prompts, because sometimes there's just some doesn't make sense prompt. You can just really remove it and remove all of the context. So it doesn't really keep on referring back to the previous like chat and like the response. Yeah, I think adding that will also save a lot of user experience, but I don't know why like all of these simple changes are not being like implemented.
By day one, yeah. I mean, also compute costs too. Like, I would assume, like, instead of me having to like re-prompt the whole, my whole conversation again, I should just be able to like open up that thread.
Yes.
And so I think that this will save some of these companies a lot of money too in compute.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting stuff. There was, let me see, I'm just checking my notes here. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that we can dive into, but for the sake of time, Felix, I'm going to pass it off to you. Talk a little bit more about the discrete diffusion model and, tell everyone what it is and what the news was.
Yeah, so like I think there's a new company called Inception. It's basically like a startup come from like Stanford CS professor Stefano. I don't know if you pronounce the name correctly, but him. And then he kind of say that he created a new new kind of like model. So previously, a lot of things we're discussing about are like just advancement or optimization on transformer-based model. But now they're talking a new approach of diffusion model on large language model, on like text generation. So like diffusion model, I think everyone know it. It's kind of used a lot in like image generation and video generation. But it's kind of like the first thing they're talking about is text generation. And like really like different way of thinking about it is that previously when using large language model, the result is autoregressive, which means that each new output depends on the previous token. And so every time you have to predict word by word. And then the view and instinct of like a text diffusion model is that you can they output the whole sentence at once. And I think about, does this sentence make sense? So essentially this kind of overcomes the autoregressive barrier. You can just generate the whole sentence at once instead of waiting one by one. So extreme parallelization and like extreme token generation will be enabled if this actually works out. So I think that is like the main, so if it really works out, this is like the key game changer.
Just to be clear, this is Inception Labs, and is this Mercury? Is that what this the LM is?
Yes, I think the company is called Inception, and then I'm not really sure about the name. Yeah, but
Got
essentially,
I mean, sorry. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's kind of like the number one key takeaway. It's kind of like you don't have to generate a token from left to right anymore. You can give any token, like it can generate from the middle, or like given the whole sentence, it can just like directly just infill it, like how image works. So you can think about like the whole sentence as one image, and then just directly generate it, and you have like overall picture instead of like looking from left to right. Yeah.
And just to kind of clarify, you're saying that this is going to lead to faster inference, more accurate. Like, what is the sort of the main takeaway here for?
I think there are three main takeaways. The first one is kind of the fast generation. It's no longer autoregressive, which means that it's not parallelizable, right? Because you have to wait for each token to be generated to generate the next one. It can generate like the whole sentence at one time, like how you generate an image. And then this also allows for like long-term coherence, because using this kind of model, it understands the whole picture at once and then generates directly instead of going one by one. So a lot of problem for large language model is that if the text get longer, it can lose context and all that problem. And the third thing is kind of cool. It's kind of the good quality for any diffusion model. It enables like a direct trade-off between compute and quality. So for diffusion model, you can just keep on saying like add more compute, run more iterations, and you get better quality. It's really easy to just control it. Instead of large language model, it's kind of hard to actually control the quality of the text generated. Yeah.
That's super exciting. Do you see this actually kind of, this model kind of percolating, or like this diffusion method across other LLMs, or is this should be research and
Yes. So I think the research of them currently still proprietary and it's not open source or like research about yet. But I did read through their research last year, I think 2024, and they compare their model with ChatGPT, GPT-2. So it's still pretty early stage. But essentially, they're arguing that using this kind of model, they can get better performance than GPT-2 at that time. So I'm not sure how like the new model works, but if it works out, these are all the key benefits, and maybe have to leak like a new paradigm for how like we view like AI agents and large language models. Yeah.
Fascinating. I mean, super cool. I'm pretty sure this is called Mercury. I need to double check. I think you read the paper, and then
yes,
I'm looking at like the product launch. So they define this as, like, in my eyes, it's like the first like commercial scale diffusion LM. That's what I read. It's specialized for code gen, which
makes sense.
Again, I should probably,
because like what I'm describing is that for them, like the problem is not no longer like journeying from left to right. Instead, you can give them the whole code base, and then it can fix the middle. and then like just find the place that need to be fixed instead of like trying to regenerate everything again. So I can just find the place that needs to be corrected and then work on it. Yeah. So this kind of
that
also
would be huge for like
how the
finish. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yes, I think it makes a lot of sense for code generation because like the infilling technique it provides, which means that it can have the overview of the whole code base. So the long-term coherence I'm talking about, and it can find specific places to replace the word. Instead, in comparison to large language model, which has to redo everything and then go from left to right. Yeah. Which is like a more natural
I could see that
of how like people
huge
work.
for like
Yes.
Code refactoring. Code refactoring to me is like, holy crap. Like if you can just identify, you don't need to like generate the entire like code snippet, just like fix the little piece. That would be huge. I mean, part of the reason why, Near got created was like this was like way back in the day, like trying to rewrite the entire internet and a formally verified version of Rust with like code gen models. And I do think that this is going to be like one of the most important pieces of like all of AI is just going and like securing software, assuming that, the security, like software development models are going to be better than like the like black hat ones.
Yes.
So it's this like constant whack-a-mole, but I do believe that like this is one of the most important things.
Yeah, and also really interesting at how they train this kind of model. So essentially, they kind of treat it as image diffusion network. Like they add noises to the text, and then what it means by adding noise to the text is they randomly replace the token with other words. So you can each time you can just change like every word to like random token, and then make it to like a nonsense sentence, and then the model will learn how to like revert it back based on like the entropy loss called score entropy, and then they use it to kind of denoise the text, and then every time they can make sure that they're getting to the right direction by comparing the probability between the next generated sentence versus the previous ones. So I keep on trying to emphasize that the probability in their context is the whole sentence, if it makes sense as a sentence, versus in large language model, it's like given this token, what's the probability of the next token? Yeah.
Well, super exciting stuff. I did find the paper here, Discrete Diffusion Modeling by Estimating the Ratios, the Data Distribution, Aaron Lowe, Chenlin Meng, and Stefano Erman. We'll drop this paper here in the chat if anyone is interested in looking more into it. But Felix, is there anything else you want to add regarding this this paper?
Yeah, I think that's all.
Cool. Awesome. Did want to save a little bit of a spot on this call for image and video gen models. I'm pretty damn confident 2025 is the year image and video gen models are going to get really, really good. Up to now, it's been they're interesting, but it's more, I think, like gimmicky and fun rather than like being able to like create entire movies or like advertisements or anything like that. But we are seeing a lot of progress. It's only March in video and image gen models, and Ideogram recently launched a new model to create images with texts inside of them. I think that this is a really awesome thing because I've been trying these different image gen models for like graphics for events and like advertisements and stuff, and frankly speaking, it never really cuts it because I end up needing to like go and design the text piece of it after. So I'm really excited to try this out even more. This is Ideogram, and for anyone that's like creating graphics, and Felix, you're a startup founder with not an entire marketing team. These things save people like us a ton of time. So check out this Ideogram launch. I will definitely drop it in the chat after. That was one of the cool pieces of news. Hey, do you use any of these like image gen models for?
I tried Sora before, like try to generate, like kind of ran into the same problem about like the text inside the videos. I think it just looks like text and then it doesn't really mean anything when we are working with it. So that's kind of one impeding factor for us to actually adopt it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like I've tried these things and I'm like, wait, I need so much more. I might as well just create it from scratch. So
it takes more time
text.
to create it. Yeah, the text and everything else, especially if it's embedded inside the whole frame. Yeah.
Cool. So that's called Ideogram. We'll drop the link in the chat as well. Something else that like I will actually use is something called Hume AI. They recently launched Octave TTS, which is a speech to text model that understands what you're saying, and you can make it add certain emotions, do certain accents, and it really humanizes audio. And I think that this is again going to be a pretty important piece of like automating, let's say, like a marketing team of sorts, because like people don't want to listen to an entire talk about AI or about your product by like a robot sounding voice. Like, I don't know about you, I hate it. Like,
Yes.
I hate the automated, the robot voice in the background of an ad. I just don't think it's quality. I think it's cheap.
Yeah. And people just know that it's made by AI, but now they can tell.
Yeah, I mean, this is taking a bit of a step back, but like, what is the new Turing test? Like, I always thought the Turing test was, hey, can somebody distinguish whether this is a human or not? I think we've passed that, even with more robotic sounding models, because like some people can't tell. But I think it's only going to get harder and harder, and this right here is a huge step forward.
I still remember in school, like the Meta researcher went to talk about their research, and essentially like letting large language model or AI agent to learn what is memes. So they just show a lot of meme pictures and let them understand it, and if they find it funny, then they pass the Turing test.
Yeah, humor models is so hard. Like, I'm actually working on kind of a side project, trying to get a bunch of data sets labeled of memes and just like funny things online. And it's really to sort of improve these like social media management agents or models, because at the end of the day, like, people go online for entertainment. And a lot of entertainment is comedy. And so if we are not able to train models to sort of understand humor, but not have it be super cringe, like this is sort of the way, in my opinion. Like, we need it to be able to be funny.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, Hume AI, Octave TSS, check it out. I'm super bullish on this. I think that this is going to be like just get bigger and bigger. I do want to flag a really cool new open source video model called WAN AI. I think that this looks just as good as some of the paid models out there. This is kind of my new favorite open source video gen model. It's called WAN AI. It works really well. It's being like, there's an API to it as well. So if you want to, go run it yourself, great. If you just want to, use the API, I think it's worthwhile like embedding this model into your like model hub. If you have any model sort of aggregators out there watching, WAN AI is really great. I think it's just as good as Sora, and I will, play with it more this week. But this is sort of, to me, like the biggest news in open source video gen world. I need to experiment with it more, but definitely try it out. WAN AI, WAN AI. Have you tried any of the video models, Felix? Like, not just
I think the only one I tried was Sora, so interested to test out the other ones.
Yeah, normally these clips are only like 5 to 20 seconds, maybe 30, and like people are able to like bunch of these things together. But I did meet someone over the last week saying that like they created like full feature length movies with AI. I have not seen any that are good. So he claimed that there's like a whole like movie studio. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the problem with all this video AI agent thing is kind of like they cannot obey like physical like gravity, like all the physical laws in the world, and then so a lot of things will look super weird from a human's perspective. And I think that's kind of hard to embed into the model.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because we see some of these reasoning models saying that like, oh, this model is the next AI physicist or AI chemist, and obviously there's a lot of hardcore work that goes into making these things more accurate. How do we actually get some of these video gen models to become more hyper realistic, to get that physics right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to just directly like implement like say how gravity works and like how the water should fall, so it should always go downward instead of upward. But to like kind of make it work, it's kind of just show a bunch of examples. I think that's kind of the approach right now as well. Just show as much as example as possible to make sure that it kind of knows how human works and everything. Yeah.
I mean, but there's plenty of examples of video of where water is falling accurately, and that, you know,
Yes.
like it seems like there needs to be almost like a, you know, like an alpha geometry type moment
Yes.
for like video gen models to make it feel real.
Yeah.
So I don't have the answer. I wish I did.
If you can solve it, it's also like unlock so many things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the guy, but maybe in the future. But kind of going back to some of the code, like video gen models, Pika recently launched Pika 2.2. This is really cool for like video transitions. So if anyone is, you know, creating videos out there and wants to like, you know, transition, the NEARWEEK team who puts this on, again, shout out to you guys. Check this out. This might be like super relevant for you. Like, you know, as this panel moves from like this panel to, let's say, another panel, you can actually sort of embed a lot of interesting like images or transition clips to make that seamless. And this is all launched in Pika 2.2. So it looks really cool. I actually haven't tried it yet, but I don't do a ton of video editing. If I did, I would 100% give this a look. And lastly, on the video image gen side of things, this is it's called Luma AI. Now generates audio for generated videos. And this is the first time I've seen this. Like, I've seen a lot of code gen videos, but it never really comes with audio. And I think that this is, again, sort of a huge leap to actually make this stuff relevant for everyday people, because no one likes to watch videos without audio. You know, this is dating back for a long time. Like, we're not in the we're in like the silent movie phase of AI video models.
Yes. I think it's the opposite exists, right? Like, given audio generates video, but not the given video generates audio. Yeah.
And I'm curious on how this, like, which of those two things will actually be the thing that works best. I mean, I do think people are going to want to prompt a video and have the audio be behind it rather than prompted like an audio model to get video behind it. But yeah, I'm just keeping my eye out on Luma AI. They've been on my roadmap or like my mental map for quite a while, and they just keep on shipping. So pretty impressed with this. I still need to give it a look. But before we move on to anything else, do you want to take some time to talk about Octo tools?
Yeah, so Octo tools, if people are in the AI agent space, they must heard about like LangChain and AutoGen. AutoGen is one from Microsoft, and LangChain just exists there as like the first mover. So a lot of people are building on top of it to create AI agents. And essentially, this Octo tool is like an open source agent framework. According to them, they outperforms like the LangChain and AutoGen in multiple benchmarks. And then I think the approach you're taking is kind of really lightweight, so you don't really need to change a lot, and then it actually works pretty well after I kind of tested it myself. So they have something called tool card. So this previously, like when you're using tools in large language model, you have to type everything into the prompt and then just make sure it's in the context in the system prompt every time, so it knows it exists. But problem for that is if you add a bunch of tools inside the large language model, it'll usually hallucinate. And then this is also pretty static, right? Because you just have to hard code everything, all the tools inside, and you want to do another task, then you have to restructure the agent again and again. So what Octo tools come up with is they come up with something called tool card. So you basically add metadata for the tool. So you talk about the functionality, the input and output format, usage constraint and best practices, and then limitations. I think limitations is really essential, and this really helps a lot of applications. Because previously when I was using tools, if I don't add limitations, they'll use the tools for a lot of nonsense use case. So I think this part, even for like just extrapolating out to just designing agent in general, this is really helpful. And they can demo a few commands to show the input and the output. And then like what's special about them is internally they're using multi-agent framework. So they have a planner agent and an execution agent. So what planner agent does is that given like, say, if you have 1,000 tools, it doesn't really add everything directly into the large language model and tell the agent you have access to it. Instead, it goes through all of the tools and then find the best tools that matches the user intent first. And then so you just have to work with a subset of the tools instead of going through everything every time. and then it'll create like a execution plan based on user query, and then it'll verify like the context. So it'll say, oh, given like your query, can I solve the problem with my current tools? If it doesn't, it'll go to find other tools. If it does, then it'll continue. So I think this is like a really useful way of working with a bunch of tools instead of just like hard coding. So in the future, I can totally see like a generalized AI agent that can do everything. It's no longer be called like a financial agent, because when people identify it as a financial agent, they only provided financial tools. But you can create like a general agent that can just have access to anything and then just ask general questions, and then they'll find the problem, the tools that they need to be solved. And the 4 metrics that it uses is called completeness, consistencies, verification, and ambiguities. So basically use this 4 to act as a judge to execute the tools. Yeah. So that's kind of like an overview of like this new framework. And I find it pretty exciting because on top of tools, you can treat agents also tools. So you can totally see like this knowledge graph of like agents calling other agents and then knowing what agents can do and everything. Yeah. So pretty aligned with what Near is doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I'd say, like kind of one of the unsolved problems is like agent discoverability, reputation. Like, how do you know which agent to call for certain tasks? I need to look a little bit more under the hood here, like how they actually do that agent connection, and like also.
Yes, I don't think it actually solves the problem you're describing. I think this is kind of like a baby step toward the big problem. So essentially, it's kind of just allow you to have another model to first look through all the available options and then coming with like an execution plan, iteratively work on it, and then finding if it needs other new agents. Yeah, so kind of like a deep search approach.
I mean, it's amazing. Like yes. My approach right now is like we're getting this like AI red teaming like auditor agent built out that can essentially be the first line of defense to make sure that, because Near AI we have an assistant. This assistant can call other agents hosted in the Near AI hub, and this Near AI like agent hub thing. There's a lot of agents in there that are absolute crap. Like we do not want this assistant connecting with those agents. So we essentially need an automated way to check to make sure that the agents that they're connecting with like aren't leaking information, like aren't subject to certain attacks. And so this is very relevant for me like right now. And my approach is like, yeah, let's build this like agent auditor as the first line of defense.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And I think the benchmark for this is more straightforward. It's checking if it actually improves the task. So adding this agent in, or adding these tools will actually help like the overall like task completion. So they can't use this as a benchmark. Yeah. So they don't have to care about it or not. Yeah, they don't have that part yet. Yes.
I will be diving deeper. I appreciate this alpha. This is a really big deal. Yeah, I mean, anything else to add there? I just have one more thing about robotics, and then
I think that covers like this Octo tools. I think it's really useful and relevant to any agent builders.
We'll give it a deeper dive. Last but not least, in the world of robotics, obviously there's so much that goes on. We can host one of these shows just in the world of robotics, but the one announcement that did interest me the most was Figure Robotics is going to be rolling out their Helix robot alpha for your home by the end of 2025. So my favorite movie growing up was I, Robot. For those who might not know, this is where there's these like humanoid robots that can help manage like your daily tasks at home. They turn evil and end up, taking over a lot of society. This seems to be the sort of entry point for these robots to enter people's homes. And I thought that this was going to be happening a lot later than 2025. Turns out Figure Robotics does say that they're going to be rolling out their alpha this year. As we also know in the world of tech, and especially in Silicon Valley, people like to announce things before they're really ready. And so, I'll believe it when I see it. But the CEO of Figure Robotics did come out and say that these humanoid robots will be ready for people's home by the end of the year, the alpha at the very least.
Yeah, my problem with this is just like, do you really need the human to be like the robot to look like humans? Can you just be like designed for a specific task and just look like that or stuff like that? Yeah, not sure.
I don't think robots that look like humans are going to be the what work for everybody. I actually think that at the end of the day, as you're flagging, like robots will be much more sort of tailored for specific tasks. Human beings did evolve in a certain way, so we could do many different types of things with our, fingers and thumbs. But I do think that, there's gonna be a lot more sort of utility for robots entering the home if they are not human. Like, I do have a hard time getting behind certain crevices underneath my fridge because my hands are too big. And
Yes.
so, having some sort of, use case specific,
Mm.
not necessarily full robot, but like not humanoid. One, while I think it accelerate adoption for robots to be in the house, I think most people are going to be scared to have a human,
Yes.
a robot that looks like a human walking through their home. Um, and I'm much more bullish on like, the Roomba, or like these auto like vacuums. And actually over Christmas time, I was watching a DEF CON, the big security conference and like, hacker conference, about automated vacuum security vulnerabilities. And my TLDR from that like 90-minute talk was that like most of them are like very not secure at all.
Yes.
And we should be very cognizant of throwing robots into our homes that are able to like map our entire homes and like perform tasks, because, well, the smaller robot, like the smaller ones that are already
Yes.
deployed, aren't even that safe.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit concerned, but again, alpha, and it should be battle tested before hitting mass market.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, actually, one very last thing. My other, like, I'm watching a few companies in the robotic space. The other one's Physical Intelligence. It's called PI for short. They are creating like a more generalized model, just like to bring physics in the real world, the AI into like the physical world. They have come out. Let's see. Yeah, they recently announced their visual language models to control robots. It's pretty cool. I'm gonna drop a link in this thread. But for those who are interested, in like home robotics, they were actually the ones to come out with a really big announcement earlier this year, where they have robots like fold clothes for people. This was one of like the main actions that is sort of like a benchmark in the home robotics world. Like, can your robot fold clothes for you? And they are doing a pretty damn good job. Now, it's not the humanoid robot that Figure Robotics is pushing, but in the world of robotics, absolutely check out physical robotics, physical intelligence. I'm sorry, also known as PI. That's it for me. Felix, is there anything that you want to say before we hop off?
Yeah, I think that's all. That's a lot covered today.
Yeah, thank you all for bearing with us. We jumped through a lot of news and content without any visuals, and so you might even want to like throw this talk on like 0.75 speed if you're trying to get all the information. And so, last but not least, on my end, we are if anyone here is watching from San Francisco or the Bay Area, we do run monthly paper clubs, where next we'll be unpacking S1. Which actually we did talk a little bit about.
I think.
Hey, Felix, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think you kind of disconnected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I froze for a second. So I will say we are running a paper club on March 10th in San Francisco. If anyone here is interested in S1 and simple test time scaling, that's gonna be March 10th in SF from 6:30 to 9 p.m. I will drop the link again in the chat. And then if we have any hackathon builders, we have a useful agents hackathon again in San Francisco. That's happening next weekend, next Friday and Saturday, March 14th and 15th. This is in partnership with SF Compute and Electric Capital. And the whole point here is to build useful agents. A lot of agents being made today are fun, they're gimmicky, but I don't think they're really accomplishing tasks for people at scale quite yet. And so if you do want to participate in this hackathon, you are able to use existing agents that you've built. You don't need to build everything from scratch at the hackathon. And again, the reason why is because we want useful agents built. This might not happen in a 24-hour period. So as long as you make some sort of contribution to the existing agent you have, you can qualify for the over $30,000 worth of prizes, and you can build with the team. It's going to be pretty great. It's a 24-hour hackathon. It's, spend the night there. We'll have an office where everyone will be working. And the only requirement for your useful agents to be considered useful is you need very clear benchmarks of what actually defines success for your agent that you can test. So if you're building useful agents, come by March 14th and 15th this next weekend in San Francisco. So I'll also drop the link to that. Besides that, there was a lot of amazing announcements during the last week with NEARAI. We did summarize a lot of these in What Did You Ship Last Week, which is the episode that we host here every Thursday, where a bunch of NEARAI ecosystem builders and founders are kind of demoing what they built. And so we did announce a new thing called the Open Agents Alliance in partnership with Coinbase and a bunch of other amazing teams that we're all committed to building verifiable and privacy-preserving AI agents. That is a pretty great thing, like, uniting everyone. Let's not make this a PvP world. We all need open source AI to be private and verifiable. And then also we did demo a cool a cloud operator agent. It was just a demo. There's going to be more announcements made later, so TBD. And then also agents building agents builder demo. We now have agents that can now buy things for you, like a pair of headphones off Amazon using crypto. And so there are, a lot of really exciting innovations happening on the NEARAI side, but tune into our Thursday episode to kind of get the deep dive. So that's it for me. Felix, where is the best place for people to follow you and learn more about Xtrace?
Yeah, so we have a Twitter handle called Xtrace AI, and then we'll post like all our progress and then our research inside that Twitter post.
Amazing. And what about you personally?
Yeah, I have a Felix Xtrace. Yeah, not really using it right now, but I'll gradually use it more.
Yeah, you'll gradually use it when you have an agent that can post on your behalf that just like you. Yes. Yeah, I feel that. Cool, guys. Well, this has been great. Thank you, Felix. Thank you, NEARWEEK. We're going to do this again every week. Sorry for missing last week. Just too many things to ship. And again, this Thursday, we'll be hosting What Did You Ship This Week? So tune in then. And until then, have a good one.
Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to NEARWEEK.